Good evening, Rolling Meadows. This is the August 28th, 2018 City Council meeting beginning at 7:30. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon.
Here.
Alderman Bugnatz.
Present.
Alderman Majikas.
Here.
Alderman Gallo.
Here.
Alderman Banjer.
Here.
Alderman Diastis.
Present.
Alderman Williams.
Here.
With all 7 in attendance, we do have a quorum. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the August 14th, 2018 council meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Banjer has made it. Mr. Williams has seconded it. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? Seeing none, the question is, shall the minutes be approved? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Tonight is, first off, is the mayor's report. There were a couple of exciting things that happened over the weekend. For those of you that made it to Wine Down by the Creek, I think we had was it one of our larger groups? I think CZAC says, except for those of you that were there for the last 30 minutes when the rains decided to come. But other than that, it was a great time. We also had our city market on Saturday where we had the Rolling Meadows High School band perform. So that was really a nice event. They brought all 80 members of the marching band out to the city market. And just a little heads up, in September, we will have Fremd High School and Rolling Meadows High School presenting the robotics a program that they have there and some of their high mileage cars. Are there any ward reports? Yes. I'm sorry. Mr. Diastis.
Thank you. I received a call today from a resident who expressed significant concern about 3 power outages that their street, or I should say half of their street, suffered over the last 90 days. The street is Magnolia, and I believe it's the west side of the street that has experienced power outages, while the east side of the street does not. So the resident asked me to ask staff, what are we doing to correct this? Have we spoken to ComEd yet? Is there another line that needs to be laid? What's happening so that I can respond to a long block of residents whose power constantly goes out?
Yes. Mr. Krumstock.
I can respond that the resident did call City Hall, and City Hall did send to our ComEd rep the request and the dates and everything else, so we are waiting for our rep to get back to us on that. So she did call here.
Okay, so do we have any idea of when we might typically expect some kind of response from ComEd?
Typically, it's a few days, depending on if they have to run a report on the line or anything else like that. But as soon as we get a response, we will be forwarding that to you, and also hopefully responding back to the resident, because we do have that information.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Krumstock.
Thank you. Any other ward reports? Seeing none, the council meeting is now open to members of the audience for 20 minutes to address the City Council on matters that are not on the agenda or regarding other issues. We ask that persons wishing to address the City Council keep their comments to 5 minutes in length. Comments must be addressed to the council as a whole through the mayor, and profanity may not be used in any form. The first signatory is Scott Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor,
you.
Councilman. Thank you for having me here. I do not reside in the city of Rolling Meadows, but I have about 4,000 students that go to school here, and I'm here to kind of speak for them a little bit. Those students that reside and go to school in the city of Rolling Meadows speak 74 different languages. They come from different cultures, and they have many different religions. And your preliminary vote to approve the special usage for the mosque at the industrial park was a great civics lesson for them. I know that they felt like the city council was supporting them, all of them, in all their differences, and it's been pretty powerful to see that response, so I want to thank you for that. Just a couple of notes on that. I did a little preliminary examination of the real estate taxes, and I think that once the old property is sold and got back on the books, I think the real estate taxes are going to be nominal in difference. And I think that it's something we really shouldn't pay too much attention to. The last thing is that I'm also a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I know that the city has done a great job recruiting international and national headquarters. Gallagher just recently came, and I think many more will come when they see that you've made this positive movement of accepting this special use request for the mosque. So we're great partners. We appreciate all you've done. I think later in the agenda, the school district is giving you some land so that you can do some work, and we've been great partners. We appreciate that, and we look forward to the partnership going forward in a positive way in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. The next signatory is Linda Weissy. Weissy? Was I close?
Yes, Wacy.
Wacy,
That's right.
thank you.
Thank you. My name is Linda Wacy. I am a member of the Interfaith Dialogue Group with INSS. And I want to thank the aldermen for your vote of yes, those of you who voted yes for the INS expansion on August the 14th. I'm grateful for that vote for my Muslim friends. And for those who didn't vote favorably last time for the expansion, I hope that you've had a chance to reflect on the subject so that you are now comfortable with voting yes. In reading from the Rolling Meadows Community Overview printed in your city webpage, I quote, "Rolling Meadows has developed into a mature community, diverse in religious, ethnic, and economic backgrounds." And I agree, yes, it has. And I choose to believe that you will do the right thing and vote yes in support of the expansion. The vote is won also in favor of the religious diversity of this prayer hall and the ethnic minority people who attend it. Your vote, yes, validates the words of the community overview. Let the expansion of ISNS be the beginning of a closer relationship of community involvement between city officials and members of ISNS. Thank you.
And thank you for coming forward tonight. The next signatory is Marilyn Briding.
I'm representing Carol and Christopher Melby, who are residents of Rolling Meadows. They were here at the last meeting, and they asked me, since they're unable to be here because of family obligations, they asked me to read this from them. They wanted to make known their support for the ISNS. At the last council meeting, we spoke of the increase in diversity in Rolling Meadows over the past 43 years that we have lived here, and now that enriches and brings vitality to the community. The mosque has been a good neighbor for many years. Other religious organizations reside in the same ward, and along with the mosque are an asset to the religious and cultural fabric of Rolling Meadows. We urge the council to support the Islamic Society's request. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Maria Duss, the next signatory, is it Mario or Mario? M-A-R-I-O?
Marie Duss?
Maria Duss?
Marie?
Okay, we'll pass.
Why don't you spell it? Why don't you spell it out right?
M-A-R-I-O-D-U-S-S? Pass. Mac, the next signatory is Mark Stansky?
Stastny?
Stastny.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. My name is Mark Stastny, 2106 Kirchhoff Road, 3rd Ward. My open question is, how many more 20-minute open dialogues do we need before we get this approved? Diversity is the key in Rolling Meadows, having lived here for well over 30 years, and appreciate that. And going forward, knowing my friends from ISNS personally, professionally, and otherwise, and what they wish to do, regardless of hearsay as to tax, money, etc. This is a very, very large vote, and I look forward to hearing a positive vote later this evening, to which I thank you.
And thank you for coming forward this evening. Reverend Peter Warman?
Hello.
Hi there. Greetings.
Pastor Heike, one of the other pastors at Our Saviors, came on August 14th, and I was unable to be here, but I wish that I could have been, and so I'm glad that I can be here today. The work of ISNS, they are truly partners with us at Our Saviors Lutheran Church and with countless other churches and faith communities. And the work that they do, that we've been able to do together, is truly priceless. I just started thinking about some of the things that we've done together, and they're really amazing things. Peace vigils, when we clearly need more peace in the world today. We've done peace vigils. I'm currently working with folks from ISNS and other religious organizations to work on anti-racism going forward in the future. We have helped to feed hungry people in the community together through PADS and through summer suppers. And I've broken bread with folks at ISNS numerous times, and looking forward to them coming and breaking bread with us at our church very, very soon. So there was education that happened at ISNS where we got to know our Muslim neighbors. And in just 3 weeks, I'm teaching a class at my church, helping our Muslim neighbors to know what it means to be a Lutheran Christian. I don't know what it means to be a Lutheran Christian, even though I'm a Lutheran pastor. So it's an honor to stand with them, and it's an honor to be able to speak on their behalf and for my members at Our Saviors Lutheran Church. Thank you.
And thank you for your participation tonight. The next signatory is Terry R. Is it Bond? B-O-H-N? Sorry. Bourne?
Four.
I apologize if I...
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Terry Bohr. I'm here tonight to represent R.C. Wegman Construction Company. I'm here to hopefully answer any questions or provide any clarification you might have regarding the construction of the new fire station on 3201 Algonquin Road. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next signatory is Paul Sandberg.
Good evening. My name is Paul Sandberg, resident of Ward 2, Rolling Meadows for 8 years, and I'll offer support and your thanks for the vote of the ISNS presence in our ward, Ward 2, and Rolling Meadows. I work as a college counselor and can't speak enough about the appreciation of differences and that we all should recognize within ourselves. And this is very important. I'm also a member of Our Saviors Lutheran Church, and so I share that connection through with Our Saviors and as a resident here. So I appreciate your support and positive vote.
Thank you. The next signatory is John Greswak? I need new bifocals. Is it?
It's Griva. It's a tough one.
Griva.
Yes.
Okay, well.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Griva. I'm here on behalf of the developer, MAR Development. I'm here to answer any questions you may have about the proposed preliminary and final subdivision at 1415 Algonquin and 1402 to 1414 Gulf Road. Thank you.
Thank you. This next signatory is Lusan Lang. Was I close?
Lucian Lang.
Lucian Lang, thank you.
I work with Ray Chan Architects, and I'm here to answer any questions about Pita Pita and the outdoor patio. So,
Thank you. The next thing, Vince, just come on up. Where are you? Vince Buffalino from the stadium.
That's you.
I smile when I see Vince because he's been around the city of Rolling Meadows for many, many years. So,
Mr. Mayor, city council members, I'm here in regards to the special use for the outdoor patio, and we're looking to get our the first reading waived and item E reconsidered, and I'll be here for any questions when it comes up.
thank you.
Thank you.
The next signatory is Mike Rep, our newest restaurant in town.
Good evening. I'm here for the same reason Vince is here. Special use permit, looking to get the first reading waived and answer any other questions that may have come up in the last 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. This now brings the council to its next order of businesses. Ordinances in for a second reading. Ordinance A is to amend Chapter 6, Alcohol Beverages of the City Code. This is the second reading. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend Chapter 6, Alcohol Beverages of the City Codes to allow Class B liquor licenses holders to have one sampling each week and up to 5 samplings, up to 5 samples. Currently, sampling is limited to 12 each year with no more than 3 samples. Do I have a motion to move this forward? Mr. Banger has made that. Do I have a second? Is there a discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon? Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
With 7 affirmed and none against, that moves forward. Ordinance B is an ordinance approving a text amendment to allow churches and places of worship, including accessory, religious, social, and cultural uses, as a special use within an M1 manufacturing district. This ordinance, if adopted, would create a text amendment to Section 122-221C of the city's zoning R ordinance to allow churches and places of worship, including accessory, religious, social, and cultural activities, to be able to be permitted as a special use within the M1 manufacturing district. The request is being made by the Islamic Society of the Northwest Suburbs. At its meeting held on July 3rd, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 2-6 on this item. This is a negative recommendation to the City Council. Do I have a motion to move this ordinance forward? Mr. Banger has made that. Do I have a second? I have a second. Discussion? Mr. Diastis.
Thank you. 2 weeks ago, we heard differing opinions on this text amendment. It may have seemed that we were discussing the Islamic Society, when in reality, the discussion was about the Rolling Meadows M1 manufacturing district. If anyone felt my opinions were directed against the Islamic Society, I apologize. Tonight, I will propose an amendment that will protect the M1 district and allow the Islamic Society the opportunity to move forward with their plans. Therefore, my amendment is, after Section 1, insert the words, "In the area bordered by Industrial Avenue to the south, Hicks Road to the west, Rolling and Carnegie Street to the east, and Edison Place with a parallel line extending west to Hicks to the north." That's the only change I will make. that allows the Islamic Society to move forward, and it protects the M1 manufacturing district at the same time.
Do we have a second to Mr. Diaz's motion? Mr. Williams has seconded. Discussion? Mr. Okay. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. I'm not going to support that just because it's opening up the door. We had this happen before the first time. We opened up the door and then we shut it behind so this wouldn't happen again. I all along have said this should have been a variance in the first place. That didn't work, so here's the text amendment. Back in 2016 when we'd discussed this, Mayor Rooney had mentioned that any thought that this will open up that M1 to a horde of religious institution was probably wrong, and I still believe that. So I don't think we're going to have any problem with a bunch of people swooping in for manufacturing real estate. We're going to have a city comprehensive plan revealed at some point down the road, and I think if we're going to be opening up a lot of our ordinances, our zoning, I think that would be the time to tighten up any amendments to zoning in that area. If we want to do it at that time, I'm willing to hear what people have to say, but I wouldn't support this now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo.
Mr. Mayor, I feel like this would be essentially a step backward because anytime we would look at an entity that may exist as a non-conventional manufacturer in that area, would we then build another island around them if there's a tattoo parlor and other tattoo artists want to come in? Should we then create a subsequent small island of zoning around the tattoo areas within our industrial zones or dance schools and just continue to segregate ourselves in that manner? So I don't think I would be voting in the direction of that request.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo. Any other discussion on the matter? I'm sorry, Mr.
I think the proposed amendment should go by way of a direction to the city staff to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, because this does not comport with anything close to what they've considered, and it wasn't something that the ISNS had even proposed, and so my advice would be to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and ask them to provide for a text amendment to perhaps create a new zoning classification that will meet the amendment as proposed by Mr. Diastis.
So, Mr. Diastis, do you still wish to go forward with
Yes, please.
Okay. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on Mr. Diastis' amendment?
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmetz?
No.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
So that moves that amends this amends ordinance B. So once again, we will ask for a motion to move this ordinance forward as amended by Alderman Diastis. Mr. Baner has made that. We have a second. Mr. Williams has seconded. Any discussion on the amendment as it's on the ordinance as amended? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmetz?
Yes.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. That ordinance moves forward as amended. This brings us to Ordinance C, approving a special use to allow a place of worship on the M1 Manufacturing District at 1200 Hicks Road. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve a special use permit for a church or place of worship, including its accessory religious, social, and cultural uses for the property located at 1200 Hicks Road for the Islamic Society of the Northwest Suburbs. At its meeting held on Tuesday, July 3rd, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted on the special use matter with the assumption that the text amendment would be approved. With that assumption, the commission voted 5-3 with 1 absent in favor of a special use. Do I have a motion to move ordinance C forward? Mr. Banger has made that. Do I have a second? Mr. D. Thank you, Mr. Budmats. Is there discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on ordinance C?
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Cannon.
No.
Alderman Budmats.
Yes.
Alderman Majakis.
Yes.
Alderman Gallo.
Yes.
Alderman Baner.
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed. That ordinance is adopted. This brings us to ordinance D, accepting a quitclaim deed from the Community Consolidated School District 415 for a parcel of land on Barker Avenue at the bridge, Willow Bend School property. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve an ordinance that would authorize the City of Rolling Meadows to accept a quitclaim deed for a small parcel of property, 3,800 square feet, that is required to be acquired via permanent easement or by outright ownership in order to make improvements to Barker Avenue Bridge by the use of federal funding assistance. To be eligible for federal funding, the controlling local agent, in this case the City of Rolling Meadows, must be able to identify that all the land for which the bridge itself and for its support structures are situated are on public property. Do I have a motion to move ordinance D first? Thank you, Mr. Jackus. Do I have a second? Ms. Banger has made that. Is there a discussion on ordinance D? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Cannon.
Yes.
Alderman Budmats.
Yes.
Alderman Majakis.
Yes.
Alderman Gallo.
Yes.
Alderman Baner.
Yes.
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. The ordinance is adopted. This brings us to ordinance E. The ordinance is to approve a liquor license application for a Class A2 liquor license for Donato Restaurant Group doing business as Anna's Red Apple at 2121 South Plum Grove Road. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve an ordinance that would authorize the city to approve an application for a Class A2 liquor license that is being requested by Donato Restaurant Group Incorporated doing business as Anna's Red Apple, which is located at 2121 South Plum Grove Road. Do I have a motion to move ordinance E past? Ms. Jackus, thank you. Seconded. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Diastis.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to know who the Donato Restaurant Group is. I'd also like to know, my current knowledge of Red Apple is that they're open for breakfast and lunch, but not dinner. So I'd like to know, are they going to be open for dinner, and do we have a schedule yet? Most restaurants that ask for a liquor license provide a schedule. So those are a couple of questions right off the bat that I have. And if we know what their ultimate intent is by asking for this liquor license.
Thank you. Mr.
I can answer that to the best of my knowledge, and obviously we do have one of the partners here, but Anthony Donato is the owner of the restaurant group. Obviously, they have restaurants throughout the area, and yes, Alderman Diastis, they do have plans to be open at night. This is their first step for the liquor license, and then they will be back to the city council for, they're going to do some remodeling. I'm not saying anything, probably, it's okay, now it's more, he's giving me the okay. So they're going to do some remodeling. They're going to be bringing back the bar in the back that used to be in there, and then at a later date, they're going to be coming to the city council to ask for a G1 for video gaming. But we have not seen their expanded hours. They first wanted to get the liquor license, and then once they purchased Red Apple, they have been making small changes.
So is it protocol to get a liquor license before the hours?
Typically, yes, because they're already a operation that is in place, and as you know, The liquor license starts at 11. So at this point in time, they would have very limited liquor, but they wanted that before they kept on moving with each of the pieces.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on ordinance E? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, the ordinance is adopted. The next item on the agenda is the consent ordinances. It consists of 7 items. Staff is recommending that items J and K be pulled from the consent ordinances. So as mayor, I will pull them. Does any alderman wish to have any other items for the consent agenda for ordinances pulled? Yes, Mr. Diastis.
You said J and K. F, G,
You're pulling F,
G,
yep.
you pulled J, you pulled K, that's it. And L.
And L, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
And H.
Well, then we no longer have a consent.
Whatever.
Consent ordinance. So we'll go at them at one at a time. This brings us to ordinance F, to amend the city code for municipal gas tax. This is the first reading. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend the city code for the municipal gas use tax and repeal ordinance 18-17, which was passed this year, and provides a clean ordinance. Nicor's Gas Company's legal counsel provided the city with this amended and updated ordinance and an agreement to be approved by resolution for approval by the city council. Nicor's Gas Company's legal counsel requires that no references to how monies will be used by the city. However, per the city's annual budget, the municipal gas use tax will be deposited into the city's local road fund for the purpose of repairing, resurfacing, and reconstructing the city's roadways. The tax is on schedule for December 1st, 2018 implementation. Do I have a motion to move forward? Mr. Cannon has made that. Second from Mr. Banger. Mr. Diastis.
Well, thank you. My first question, I think you already answered, was that so now the natural gas tax will take place, will start December 1st. Is that correct?
Yes, per the it's on schedule.
Okay, and then as I had previously voiced my opinion in opposition of this, while we also charge the residents for city stickers, I will be voting against this year. Next year, when there are no stickers to be paid, I will support this.
Thank you, Mr. Diastis. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll then?
Alderman Bud Matts?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
No.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
6 in favor and 1 opposed. That ordinance does move forward. Ordinance G is an ordinance allowing for special use for 1219 Gulf Road. This ordinance, if adopted, would allow for special use to provide outside seating for PETA, a new restaurant located at 1219 Gulf Road. Outdoor seating is permitted for restaurants for seating of 12 people or fewer. The special use approval for seating area to have up to 18 outdoor seats available. In addition, the seating area is proposed to wrap around the side of the building where the city code requires a 5-foot separation be provided with the adjacent driveway aisle. In this case, only 1 foot separation is proposed with a protective fence. The Planning and Zoning Commission had the following special use conditions. A, no outdoor seating will be permitted past 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday or 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. B, outdoor seating is allowed from April 1st to November 1st every year. C, no storage of outdoor seating items will be permitted, i.e. when not in use at night and from November 1st to April 1st. D, if the business ceases to utilize the outdoor seating areas for a full season, the fences and gates shall be removed. E, petitioner will pursue, with the landlord's permission, to install painted pedestrian markings at the front of the building. F, a 36-inch ADA-compliant aisle to be maintained at all times. Fencing shall be reinforced with the possibility of using bollards for the uprights at the west side wraparound area. Staff does not believe two of the conditions, E and G, which were developed by the Planning and Zoning Commission are necessarily essential to the proposed outdoor seating operations. However, they do add a level of additional safety to the site. At its meeting held on Wednesday, August 8th, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend this item. Do I have a motion to move forward? Mr. Banger has made that. Do I have a second? Mr. Gallo, thank you. Mr. Diastis?
Thank you. I want to make sure I understand that the staff is suggesting that E and G are not necessary for this establishment.
Mr. Vogt.
We're negotiating.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Diastis, staff is just pointing out that these were additional conditions added by the Planning and Zoning Commission to add a level of safety. They felt that these conditions were warranted. This is similar to conditions we saw for the other two outside seating hearing requests at the same meeting. So in the same context, staff is just pointing out that we're comfortable without the additional level of security fencing or reinforced fencing, but it's certainly the pleasure of the council as to whether the council feels that that's important to support the additional conditions or not. Staff was comfortable without them.
Without either?
Yes.
Correct.
So that being said, then, I would make an amendment to remove E and G from this ordinance.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Banger has made that. Is there a second? I mean, is there any discussion on Mr. Dias's amendment? So will the clerk please call the roll on amendment to ordinance G, which will eliminate letters E and G?
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts?
Yes.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, that amendment is accepted. That brings us to back to ordinance G. Do I have a motion to move ordinance G forward as amended? Mr. Banger has made that. Mr. Williams has seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment as amended? Yes, Mr. Diaz.
I have a couple of questions here. Do we know what the operating hours are for this establishment? What time they close in the evening?
They are in for building permits at this point in time, and I cannot remember when we were at the planning and zoning what those hours are, but I think that they're pretty standard hours.
I don't recall either what's proposed, but we, within the staff recommendation, recommended to be consistent with other outdoor seating areas, the 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, or 11 at the latest Friday and Saturday.
Well, my concern, being in the restaurant and hotel business, is that as I read this, it says no outdoor seating permitted past 10 or 11 p.m. And I understand that. And it says no storage of outdoor seating items will be permitted when not in use at night. So my concern as a restaurateur is, assuming I have a good business and I've got clientele in my restaurant or in my bar at 11 o'clock, and if I happen to close at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, I have to ask my help to grab tables and walk them through the dining room or through the bar when I've got a full staff, a full restaurant or a full bar. So as a restaurateur, I'm uncomfortable with that. So I would make an amendment that the outdoor seating, no storage of outdoor seating will be permitted after the restaurant or after the bar closes. So if the bar closes, the restaurant closes at midnight, now the restaurant should remove the furniture from the sidewalk, because the restaurant then, hopefully the guests are leaving and you can carry tables and chairs through the restaurant and store it. Otherwise, how would you store it without disturbing somebody's meal or somebody having a cocktail? So that would be my other amendment on this, is that no outdoor seating will be permitted past closing.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a second to Mr. Diastis? Mr. Banger has made that. Is there a discussion on the amendment for section B? Will the clerk please call the roll on amendment B being added to ordinance G?
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon? Alderman Bob Matz?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
With 7 approved and none against, that ordinance is amended into ordinance G, which brings us back to the original ordinance G. Do I have a motion to move ordinance G forward with all the amendments that were proposed tonight? Mr. Banger has made that. Mr. Budmetz has seconded that. Is there any discussion on the ordinance as it has been amended? Mr. Budmetz, sir?
Just one, what I believe is a typo in section 1 of the ordinance. It says that earlier in this, that the petitioner is not asking for liquor service, but then we're granting them liquor service under section 1. So I'm assuming that we can just remove that without, recognize it as a typo.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes, they did not ask for liquor, so that would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? What does it, I think, is a typo.
But you still need to make a motion.
Okay. Mr. Budmetz?
I'd like to make a motion to take that out of section 1, therefore.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion on the amendment to the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment?
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bob Matz?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, that amendment is amended. So now we go back to ordinance G. And the question is, do I have a motion to move forward with ordinance G as amended? Mr. Banger has made that. Thank you. Mr. Gallo, is there any discussion on the amendment G? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bob Matz?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Thank you. With 7 in favor and none opposed, ordinance G has passed. You got to have a little levity, folks, sometimes, you know? This brings us to ordinance H, approve a planned development amendment to 3650 Burdick Street. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve a planned development amendment to the material service plan development for the property located at 3650 Burdick Street for its current owner, Hillside Auto Body and Service Incorporated. The subject property, consisting of 3.83 acres on 4 tax parcels, is located in the M2 manufacturing district and was approved in the 1980s as part of the planned development manufacturing, acting as a concrete mixing plant. The operation ceased several years ago and the property sat unused. In 2015, the property was purchased by Hillside Towing, which is seeking approval to repurpose it into a variety of potential uses, some of which Hillside plans to operate itself on the eastern portion of the site, and some of which potential lessees will operate in the future, the western portion of the site. The proposed use for the eastern portion of the property includes temporary vehicle storage, repairs to equipment, inclusive of refuge dumpsters, used vehicle sales with no on-site sales, minor vehicle repairs, and various material outdoor storage. Proposed use for the western portion of the property are less defined. Potential uses mentioned by the petitioner have included landscape, waste transfer, and IEPA permitting would be required, truck rental, and metals scrap yard. The petitioner has made the request for the existing gravel lot to remain unpaved. Staff has recommended, and the Planning and Zoning Commission concurred, that this request not be granted and the lot be paved, either concrete, asphalt, or brick pavers upon development phases proceeding. And an extensive number of conditions for this requested plan development amendment have been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission in their action to recommend approval by a vote of 5-0 with 4 absences. The Hillside Towing proposed amendment, these conditions inclusive of actual site, public right-of-way, landscaping sections have been included within the proposed ordinance. Do I have a motion to move ordinance H forward? Mr. Banjer has made that. Mr. Williams has seconded. We have discussion. Was that was sorry, Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the people from Hillside, I apologize I didn't get a chance to talk to you before the meeting, but I have nothing negative about it, so don't worry about me giving you a hard time. The reason I pulled this, I don't really understand why we're being so adamant about making them pave this property. As per our write-up, this operation, or some people have operated this property for over 50 years without a paved property there. And the last company was in the concrete business, and we didn't make them pave the lot. So I don't understand why we're playing such hardball with them. They're going to bring really heavy-duty equipment in there. It's going to be a really expensive process for them to pave that lot. Normal asphalt's not going to hold up very well under the kind of conditions that they tow under. So I would make an amendment that we delete that they have to pave it right away. I think they've offered in the past to pave it as they go along, as the new uses become prevalent and they move to those. So they could probably pave parts of it as they go along. But I don't see the reason why we're forcing them to pave the whole thing. So that's my amendment at this point. Thank you.
So just to summarize, you would like this, what staff has recommended, stricken, and that they would pave as they go, correct?
Correct.
That's Mr. Cannon's motion. Do we have a second?
I have a question about this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Banjer. Because I know at the end of the meeting we're going to talk about trick or treat, so I want to be nice to you all evening.
I completely agree with what Alderman Cannon says. For a slightly different reason, anything you pave is a watershed, and it goes straight into the storm system, which already has enough water in it. We've had problems with that, and we know in this area we do. So I do not want to compel them to pave areas other than in Section F, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. However, areas of designated on-site vehicle parking should be paved for storage efficiency. My suggestion would be strike that. However, I guess growing up on gravel roads, there's nothing worse than having gravel on pavement. So I would stick to the paving of the 75 feet of driveway closest to the main entry point to keep Birdnick Street free from gravel. So if Alderman Cannon doesn't mind, that would be my very specific suggestion.
Since you're the gravel expert, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm fine with that.
So, okay, your point. So, Mr. Cannon.
So I'll amend my amendment.
Okay.
We have to do another vote then?
Oh, no, hold on.
It's your motion.
No, we're not even, you have a we're just discussing your motion right now.
Okay, so
we still-
I'm amending my
you can
motion, I
still-
guess, yeah.
We're just discussing the motion. We haven't gone anywhere into
So
it.
can I change what I amended, or what I offered? So can we pave the first 75 feet and leave the rest of it unpaved for right now?
We could do that.
Find a second?
Yeah. Second? Mr. Banger has seconded. So would you restate? Because we have two people, we had the discussion, so I want to
So as
bring it
opposed
together.
to what's been written up, so the proposal is that they do not have to repave the whole lot right now. They only need to pave 75 feet inside from Birdnick in, keep
Okay.
gravel off the road. Other than that, leave it unpaved like it's been since the origination of this property 50 or 75 years ago.
So that's your motion, and
Yes.
we have a second? Mr. Banger has seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Mr. Budmats?
Could I ask for an opinion from Public Works? And just because they're down the street from this and they're familiar with the property, do you concur with the amendment as proposed by Alderman Cannon?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Vogt.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason that staff put this condition together and was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission is that we require in our municipal code a paved surface of either concrete, asphalt, paver block, something harder and more firmer than gravel. We were concerned about the operation of vehicles, the possible transport of vehicles, and the gravel itself dragging out into the road, being not of the same condition that we require of other developments. We don't know why this was left as unpaved, but we are surmising from staff that the previous concrete business under several different generations may be older than the city itself, or at least along those lines. So given the previous use as a concrete plant, it certainly made a great deal of sense to leave large areas restricted without concrete or asphalt and the like. Staff certainly would be open to relooking at that depending on what some of those ultimate proposed uses are. It's not real clear specifically right now what they're going to use it for. If there are some uses that would allow for gravel to not be objectionable, certainly we could look at that when they come back for their finals approval. But ultimately, it's the decision of council.
We're still at the discussion stage on Mr. Cannon's amendment, which has been tweaked a little bit, so we can still tweak it. Go ahead, Mr. Williams, sir.
I have a little trouble with this situation simply because I think folks are short to remember the problems that we have had in the past with areas that were not paved and even some that were paved, where you have vehicles of various types and various spillages from those vehicles, either meant or unmeant, that have resulted in people having to go back later on, and in order to sell the property, I've seen them have to go back and take off the top 6 feet of soil and have it disposed of as hazardous waste. In some of the old days, when people were a lot more careless, I would be against not paving it because of the permanent pollution facility that you might be creating there, as opposed to a temporary pollution in the water. I don't like either one, but given my choice, I don't want to create an area. I would be against creating an area that where we might be poisoning the land itself.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any further discussion on Mr. Cannon's motion to amend Ordinance H? Mr. Krupstock.
Can I just ask for clarification, saying that for the next few days, I'm going to be revising ordinances. From the motion and the second, are you trying to say that F should now say the petitioner will submit a plan for review and approval regarding the paving of the site, undeveloped portions of the site will remain unpaved. However, and then we'll say like the 75 feet of driveway closest to the main entry point will be paved to keep Birdnick Street free. Is that, I'm just making sure because I've heard
Do we
other
have the
things.
verbiage? You're looking for verbiage here.
I'm just making sure before, as I
Yeah,
clean
Mr.
this.
Vogt?
I'm fine with that.
I'm looking for, Mr. Vogt says fine. Mr.
My
Comstock?
understanding of the intent of the amendment, it would be basically to strike most of that third line of F so that it only requires 75 feet closest to the entry to be paved. So I think I agree with the
So
city manager.
staff is in agreement. Mr. Cannon, you're in agreement with?
Yes.
Okay. Any, Mr. Diastis?
I have to agree with Mr. Williams. I've seen the old Hillside lot over in Arlington, and I've seen their new one. I think it's in Palatine. The old one had a lot of unfinished and weeds and dirt and muck. The new one is a gorgeous facility, and it's totally paved. I don't know what vehicles are parking, but you leave a vehicle parked long enough and you're going to leak oil. So I agree with Mr. Williams, that oil could get into the ground. I think our code is our code, and I think I welcome the company coming, but I think we have to stick with what we do.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Mr. Cannon's? Mr. Budmats?
Looking through the packet, the neighbor next door, Palatine Welding, it did give sworn testimony that he has a well that they use for water next door to this property. So if they're going to be storing vehicles there and it's not paved, it's reasonable to assume that leakage of oil, as Mr. Diastis describes, could in fact get to his water source. So I would suggest that we do not pass the amendment.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on Mr. Cannon's amendment that approximately the first 75 feet are to be paved? So that's the amendment we're voting on to strike, what Mr. Comstock has brought forward. So will the clerk please call the roll on Mr. Cannon's amendment?
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Majikas?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
No.
That amendment does fail by 5-2. Is there any further discussion on ordinance H? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the original ordinance H?
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
7 approved and none opposed. That ordinance does move forward. This brings us to ordinance I, approve a sign appeal for 3600 Kirchhoff Road, which is the sign right outside our building here, folks. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve an ordinance that would formally allow an electronic message board sign to exist and be operated at the Rolling Meadows City Hall, which is located at 3600 Kirchhoff Road. The ordinance is just for some housekeeping. At its meeting held on Wednesday, August 8th, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend this item. Do I have a motion to move ordinance I forward? Mr. Baner has made that. Ms. Majikas has seconded. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
With 7 approved and none against, that ordinance does move forward. This is ordinance J. I pulled these two. For those of you that are not familiar, they've only done this one other time since I've been on the council. The first time we will read through the ordinance, and then I will ask for a motion to waive the first reading and a second, and then we'll have a discussion only pertaining to waiving the first reading. Then I will come back and ask if there's any amendments or discussion on the ordinance before we vote on it. So the purpose for this is so that we can move, so these businesses can move forward to have outdoor seating, and we can do it all in one council meeting versus 2 council meetings. Ordinance J, this ordinance, if adopted, would approve a special use to allow outdoor seating with liquor service for Stadium Sports Club and Pizza Restaurant located at 4015 Algonquin Road on Arbor Drive. Outdoor seating is permitted for restaurants where liquor is not served and for seating of 12 people or fewer. The petitioner, Vince Buffalino, is requesting the special use approval to be able to serve liquor and to have up to 14 outdoor seats available. The request is also for extended hours on Monday through Thursday from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. and on Friday and Saturday from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. I don't think they want to be open for just 1 hour outside. The Planning and Zoning Commission had the following special use conditions. A, no outdoor seating will be permitted past 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday or 11:59 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Outdoor seating is allowed from April 1st to November 1st every year. No storage of outdoor seating will be permitted, i.e. when not in use at night, and from November 1st to April 1st. If the business ceases to utilize the outdoor seating areas for a full season, the fences and gates will be removed. Reinforced fencing will be installed between the columns along the street side of the space for the length of the proposed outdoor seating area. A 36-inch ADA compliant aisle be maintained at all times. Staff does not believe that the additional condition developed by Planning and Zoning Commission, item E in section 2 in the ordinance, is necessarily essential to the proposed outdoor seating operations. However, it does add a level of additional safety to the site. If this location, in this location, there will exist places at the building support pillars where less than 5 feet walkway width will exist. However, there is a minimum pedestrian traffic from business to business within the shopping center. At its meeting of the August 8th, 2018, Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend approval of the proposed special use with conditions as outlined within the proposed draft ordinance. Staff is asking for a waiver of the first reading so Stadium can utilize the special use during this season. So is there an alderman willing to make a motion for a waiving of the first reading of this ordinance?
So moved.
Mr. Diastis has made that. Do we have a second? Thank you. Mr. Banger has seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to waive first reading? Mr. Budmats.
Question of the petitioners. There's only 2 months left, September and October. How fast can they get this work accomplished, and is it expected that they will get some kind of viable use during the remainder of the usable calendar year with this, if it were approved tonight?
Well,
You would have to open up the...
I'll open up. Can I have a motion to open up the floor? Mr. Majakis has made that. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Vince, if you'd please come to the mic.
Pending permits, we're going to try our best to get it open as soon as possible. Rather than trying to do it during the winter, we'd like to get it done as soon as possible.
Do we have any other questions for the... Seeing none, thank you. Do I have a motion to close the floor? Mr. Banger has made that. Mr. Gallo has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion on a waiver for the motion for the waiving of the first reading of this ordinance? Seeing, yes, Mr. Budmats.
I understand the petitioners eagerness to get this accomplished. I think it sets a bad precedent. I don't really have a problem with the petitioner's request. I have a hard time getting it all done in one night. I think it circumvents the regular process, which is there in place so that the public has an opportunity to comment and to contact their alderman on something like this. So, although I don't have a problem with this particular issue, I have a problem with taking a shortcut, if you will, in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Budmats. Is there further any further discussion on the waiver of the motion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
No.
6 approved and 1 opposed. That motion does carry. Now, after, excuse me. Now, we will go on to the second part. Is there any additions, amendments, or discussion on this ordinance from the City Council? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we have discussion. Mr. Diastis.
Thank you. As in the item G, the PITA, I have the same concerns here. As far as item C, no storage of outdoor seating will be permitted after closing, would be my first amendment, and then the second one would be to delete the reinforced fencing between the columns. Those would be my 2 amendments.
Okay. Are there any other discussion on?
Need a second.
What exactly are the motions?
Yes.
The motions are.
Okay, just so we understand.
The motions are item C.
Right.
No storage of outdoor seating will be permitted after closing. And delete item E.
And do we have a second to Mr. Diastis' motion? Mr. Banjer has made that. Do we have any further discussion on Ordinance J? Will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment that Mr. Diastis has proposed to Ordinance J?
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Cannon? Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Majikas?
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. That amendment has been adopted. And this brings us back to any further discussion on the, do we have a motion to approve?
It's already been.
It's been approved. I'm seconded. Do we have any discussion on the amended ordinance? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, the ordinance is adopted. Ordinance K, approve a special use for 3200 Kirchhoff Road. This ordinance, if adopted, would allow a special use to provide outdoor seating with liquor service for Reps Restaurant located at 3200 Kirchhoff Road in the Rolling Meadows Shopping Center. Outdoor seating is permitted for restaurants where liquor is not served and for seating of 12 people or fewer. The petitioner, Michael Repp, is requesting the special use approval to be able to serve liquor and to have up to 20 outdoor seats available. The Planning and Zoning Commission had the following special use conditions. No outdoor seating will be permitted from 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday or 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Outdoor seating is allowed from April 1st to November 1st every year. C, no storage of outdoor seating items will be permitted when not in use at night and from November 1st to April 1st. If the business ceases to utilize the outdoor seating areas for a full season, The fences and gates shall be removed. If the business does not expand into the adjacent unit to the east or chooses to cease conducting business in that unit, any outdoor seating in front of the adjacent unit will be removed. F, no alcohol beyond this point, weather-resistant signs to be placed at each gate. A 36-inch ADA-compliant aisles be maintained at all times. H, the fencing will be reinforced for the safety of the customers. Staff does not believe that the additional condition, item H, section 2 in the proposed ordinance, developed is necessarily essential to the proposed outdoor seating or operations. However, it does add a level of additional safety to the site. As presented by the petitioner and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission's condition, the outdoor seating is to be permitted Sunday through Thursday night until 10 p.m. and Friday and Saturday night until 11 p.m. during the time period from April 1st to November 1st each year. These operational hours are permitted by the city's zoning code. That is the staff's understanding that the petitioner has indicated a desire for longer hours for outdoor seating to 11 p.m. on Sundays through Thursday and 11:59 p.m. on Friday and Saturday nights, identical to the request of Stadium Sports Club and Pizza. However, the petitioner has not approached the staff regarding this request, and no formal request, i.e. letter, has been made to the staff's knowledge. At its meeting of the August 8th, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend approval of the proposed special use with the conditions as outlined. Staff is asking for a waiver for the first reading so that if Rest Place can utilize the special use during this season. Is there an alderman willing to make a motion for waiving of the first reading of this ordinance?
So moved, Mayor.
Ms. Majikis has made that.
Second.
We have it seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to waive the first reading? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Cannon? Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Majikis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
6 in favor and 1 opposed.
Alderman Banter?
Yes.
Already been. I need a motion to add, that is the first reading, a motion to add any additions, amendments, or discussion on the ordinance from the City Council.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
And do we have a second? Mr. Banger has made that. Thank you. Is there discussion? Mr. Diastis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, to be consistent, I would like to amend this, item C, no storage of outdoor seating will, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, item C, no storage of outdoor seating will be permitted after close. And delete item H.
Yes. And there was a request to have the same liquor serving hours as the stadium, correct?
We've heard it, but we have not got anything formally identified or a letter or anything like that. So it's why we put it out there is we've heard it, but it's your discretion.
Can we have a motion to open up the floor to reps, please? We have a first. We have a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Mr. Reps, would you please come up and tell us what your desire is there?
Yes, I was not aware we could get an extended hour, and they're right, nothing formally was done. My main concern, to go with Mr. Ortiz, is that to bring in my 5 tables every night before close or after is not really a reasonable thing to do for storage purposes. Whether there's customers or anything in there, the cleaning crew would have to get around them. They are actually the old Rolling Meadows High School basketball floor. They weigh about 75 pounds apiece. They're not made to be moved around. I was told that I would be able to lock up the tables and chairs outside overnight, not between November and April, but on a nightly basis. It's not really operationally feasible to move them in and out every day with how much they weigh and with the lack of space to set these large tables and chairs. So my main concern was getting that worked out, not the extra hour right now. But I would love to have the extra hour. I was not aware of it, but the leaving them outside in an orderly fashion, cleaned up, chained together every night so no one can steal them or anything like that, that would be my main concern, and ask to have that amended.
Thank you. Are there any other discussions for Mr. Ripp? Why is it?
Move to close the floor.
We have a motion to close the floor. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this ordinance?
Can we get a second to Alderman Diaz's motion for that?
No. Yes, we got
Yeah.
a second.
We have a second, right? And
You
there
did
was a
get a
question.
second.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Are there any further discussion? Sorry. Yes, Mr. Budmats.
I guess I would ask to amend Alderman Diastis's motion based on the equipment that this petitioner has to allow him to safely secure it overnight outside, except for the winter months.
And would you include the extra hour for the...
And to include the extra hour so that he can more fully service the residents of Rolling Meadows.
So we have a motion to amend Mr. Diastis' motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Gallo has made that. Is there a discussion? Mr. Diastis.
I do not have an issue with leaving the furniture out overnight, but to be consistent, then I think we need to go back to the other two and allow them that same opportunity. We can't have one business being able to leave it out and the other one's not. So we have to be consistent all the way. Either they all take it in or they all leave it out. But you can't do one or the other. I think that shows favoritism.
Get through this. Yeah. Let's get through this, and then we'll come back through consent ordinances and come back to this. Is there any further discussion on?
Yes, come back to, we're going to go back to the other two ordinances and
The other
adjust
two
them?
ordinances, right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'm sorry. You have a motion.
To amend Alderman Diastis's.
And we have a second.
Seconded.
Any other further discussion? Yes, Mr. Williams. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll on Mr. Budmat's amendment?
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Cannon.
Yes.
Alderman
Yes.
Budmats. Alderman Majakis.
Yes.
Alderman Gallo.
Yes.
Alderman Baner.
Yes.
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, that amendment is there. Now we need a motion to go forward with Diastis' a motion to amend. Mr. Alderman Diastis' motion to amend. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion on Mr. Diastis' motion as amended? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon.
Yes.
Alderman Budmats. Alderman Majakis.
Yes.
Alderman Gallo.
Yes.
Alderman Baner.
Yes.
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
With 7 in favor, none opposed, that moves forward. That brings us back to the original ordinance K. Do we have a motion to move ordinance K forward as amended? Mr. Baner has made that motion. Ms. Majakis has seconded. Is there any discussion on the ordinance K as amended? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Budmats.
Yes.
Alderman Majakis.
Yes.
Alderman Gallo.
Yes.
Alderman Baner.
Yes.
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Cannon.
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, that ordinance does move forward. You okay there, Mr.? Okay. Ordinance L. That brings us to ordinance L. This ordinance repealing the limitations on the tax levy reading. This ordinance, if adopted, would repeal an old and antiquated ordinance on the city books. The city attorney requested these items as he has been conducting some reviews of city code. Do I have a motion to move ordinance forward? L? Mr. Majikis has made that motion. Mr. Baner has seconded. Mr. Cannon, were you the, for L?
I mean,
Nobody pulled it. We had one left over. Any discussion on ordinance L? Yes, Mr. Gallo.
Just in plain English, where it says this ordinance limits the city's tax levy to 5% or the consumer price index, does this mean that this 2-407 does not allow the city to go greater than 5% or equal to the consumer price index when performing tax levies? Is that what this means as stands now?
That's the greater of 5% of the CPI.
Okay.
Subject to
So if
5 or 6 exceptions.
If we were to approve this, we're approving the city's ability to tax greater than 5%?
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion on ordinance L? Yes, Mr. Budmats.
I'll be voting against this. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't limit ourselves to a 5% increase. I mean, we can obviously make the levy whatever we want, whenever we want. So it would just give more visibility to government and greater visibility to the residents that we would actually have to come to them with something greater than 5%. So I'll be voting no on this.
Thank you. Any further discussion on L? Will the clerk please call the roll, please?
Alderman Majikis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
no.
Alderman Budmats?
Fails. Fails by a 4-3 vote. Okay.
Bless you.
Oh, bless you. This brings us to new business. A motion.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor, we're going to go back to items G and J to get those corrected?
We do that now?
Sure.
We could do it. Okay, this is great. G and where do we start?
The first one. I think we should bring bills and
G.
taxes next time.
Motion to your
G and
J. No, G and J is the ordinance.
G and J.
We do them both together, or we gotta do them separately?
Separately.
Okay. So, Mr. Diastis, since you brought this forward, you wish to...
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend, is it an ordinance or consent? G?
G, ordinance G.
Ordinance G. To strike item C.
Okay. Do we have a second? Mr. Baner has made a second. Is there a discussion on amending ordinance G, deleting section C? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majikis?
Yes.
J.
7 in favor, none opposed. That ordinance is amended. We go back through it again, as amended, right? So we need to go back to ordinance G now, as amended. Do I have a motion to move ordinance G forward as amended by Alderman Diastis?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
It's been, Mr. Diastis has made the motion, Mr. Williams has seconded. Do we have any discussion on the amendment as it has been, the ordinance as it has been amended? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majikis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. That ordinance is now amended. That brings us to ordinance J. Mr. Diastis, since you were the one who brought it forward, you would make a motion to
Make a motion
to amend similar to what you did. Ordinance J.
Ordinance J. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, didn't we do this already? That's why we went back to the other ones.
No, was it? No, we did that with.
It was G.
We did that with G. That was reps.
It's been so much fun, I got confused, sorry.
Okay, no, we.
Peter. This is J.
We have to do stadium and Peter.
I'm sorry. We did it with K, which is reps. Yeah. So now we're going back to I and J.
Sorry for the miscommunication.
And then we'll be doing.
J. J. We're on J, which is the. So we're making it same for all three with the outdoor seating. So I'm sorry. So Mr. Diastis.
Motion to amend, strike item C in section 2 of the ordinance.
Ordinance J.
Yes, ordinance J.
Do we have a second? Mr. Williams has made that. Is there discussion on the amendment as brought forth by Mr. Diastis? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on
I'm sorry.
on the amendment? Thank you.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
With 7 approved and none opposed, that amendment is approved. Now we go back to Ordinance J. And do we have a motion to approve Ordinance J as amended by Alderman Diastis? Mr. Williams has made that. Mr. Gallo has seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on Ordinance J to move forward as amended?
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats? Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Thank you. This brings us to new business, the motion to approve payment of bills on the August 28th, 2018 warrant. The next item of business is a motion to approve the warrant from August 28th, 2018, as presented by the Finance Department. Is there a motion to approve this warrant? Mr. Banjer has made it. Ms. Majakis has seconded. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. The warrant is approved. The next item on the agenda is the consent resolution. It consists of 7 items, N through T. Does any alderman wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for resolutions? Mr. Budmats.
N?
N? Any? Mr. Diastis?
Oh. S.
I'm sorry, S.
S.
Thank you, thank you. Any?
T for me.
You know, I already penciled your name in on that one before.
Tradition.
For those of you wondering why we're chuckling, it's regarding trick-or-treat hours. And Mr. Banjer, this will make, what, 8 years in a row?
7.
No.
That's the same hour that you want to change it to.
So that makes us resolutions P, Q, R. P, Q, and R. So the chair declares in order for one motion to consider ordinances P, Q, and R without debate. Is there such a motion? Mr. Banjer has made that motion. The question is, shall all three resolutions be adopted? Resolution P, number 18-R-81, approve Barker Avenue Bridge engineering contract. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize the approval of construction engineering service agreements for federal participation for engineering services needed for the Barker Avenue Bridge Rehabilitation Project. The engineering services are eligible cost reimbursements, 80% via IDOC. Surface transportation, city engineer Christopher Burke Limited was instrumental in assisting the city with securing funding assistance for 80% of the engineering service costs that are grant eligible for the reimbursement. Q, resolution number 18-R-82, approved Barker Avenue Bridge Local Agency Agreement. This resolution, if adopted, would approve a local agency agreement for the federal participation with the Illinois Department of Transportation for the proposed Barker Avenue Bridge Rehabilitation Project over Salt Creek, pertaining to construction and construction engineering costs. The city engineer, Christopher B. Burke Engineering Limited, has been successful in obtaining federal funding assistance for the project, 80% to be paid by the Federal Highway Administration Surface Transportation Program Bridge Fund, and 80% for construction engineering to be paid by the state of Illinois. R, resolution number 18-R-83 would approve 1415 Algonquin, 1402-1414 Gulf Road, preliminary and final subdivision. This resolution, if adopted, would grant preliminary and final approval for a two-lot subdivision located at 1415 Algonquin Road and 1402-1414 Gulf Road. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend preliminary and final approval of this proposal. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Bomatz?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
With 7 in favor and none opposed, P, Q, and R have passed. This brings us to Resolution N, number 18-R-79, intent to bond. This resolution deals with the fire station project management services and relocation of both of the city's fire stations. On March 22nd, 2016, the City Council approved Resolution number 16-R-27 for the intent of expenditures of bond money. An updated resolution has been developed by the city's bond counsel on his recommendation to ensure that all expenses related to the fire station project and the citywide capital infrastructure improvements are included in future debt assured by the City of Rolling Meadows. The attached resolution outlines the following items for fire stations projected at an estimated amount of $13 million, which includes land acquisition, demolition of existing structures, engineering and design costs, construction costs, and acquisition of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. In addition, the resolution also would include expenses related to citywide capital infrastructure improvements at an estimated cost of $4.0 million. Do I have a motion to move Resolution N forward? Mr. Baner has made that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Diastis has made that. Mr. Budmatz, you have brought this forward. You have the first, as they say, bite of the apple.
One of the scenarios that was presented to us as an option in a memo on July the 17th was a $9.975 million general obligation bond for a 20-year maturity. I suggest that we pay as we go and bond as we go. At this point, we're only building one fire station. The second one hasn't been presented. And a budget is not, or bids have not been received for a second fire station, so I think it's irresponsible to borrow the money for it when we don't even know what it's going to cost. I get one of these in the mail every month, like from some company that wants me to get their credit card and give me all kinds of balances that I don't need. So the answer is the same for the city. I throw these away. And so when we need it, we'll get it. And at this point, we only have one fire station in front of us, so I don't see any reason to bond for more than $9.975 million at this time.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Crumstock, or is it Ms. Gallagher? Okay. Yes,
Thank you,
have a
Mr.
response?
Mayor.
Okay.
Just for clarification purposes, this resolution just signals intent to bond. It's not a bond ordinance. Obviously, that would come back as a full bond ordinance reviewed by bond counsel. This is just a signal that eventually the city would go out to bond. Just as a clarification as well, to add to that, that in March 2016, the city council did approve a bond intent resolution at that time for the fire station. This is just an updated one. The bond council asks that we require, as a requirement for bonding, to signal intent.
It also allows us to protect any of those funds in items. So for instance, with some of the purchase of property that we've already done, so with any bond proceeds, if we decide, we can return it. So again, all that this resolution is just talking about is the intent to bond, nothing else about it.
Further, Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. City Manager, maybe you could help me go through these numbers a little bit because I'm a bit confused. So according, and I understand the intent of what we're doing here, but I guess the intent I have is to try to better understand the numbers. You know, we've been talking all along 13 million for the stations and 4 for infrastructure. And I'm trying to figure out where we're getting the 13,000 from. So correct me if I'm wrong with my numbers. So far, we've spent approximately 2.2 on land acquisition. Right now, we're proposal tonight of spending 5.9 on one station, which brings us up to 8.1. Assuming we have to pay the same amount of money for the second station, that brings us up to 14 million. And I guess in conjunction with that, I've seen nothing in writing, anything tonight about what we'll do when we sell the 3 parcels of land that will be dissolved when we build these 2 new stations. I don't know if that money will go back to the general fund or if we can pay off bonds, some of the bond on that. I guess I just would like a little bit of clarification if I could on that.
Mr. Crumstock, who would you like to handle that?
So to address what you have discussed here, the intent to resolution to bond is as Mr. Crumstock mentioned, the reason for this resolution is so that we are signaling our intent. And the second piece to that is to make sure that we're capturing any expenses related to the fire stations or other infrastructure improvements so that we eventually can pay those back with a bond. To your point, Mr. Cannon, in terms of the budget per se to the bond, the fire station project, when the fire station project, not to go too far beyond what this resolution is about, but since it does pertain to the budget, the original figure of 9 million was estimated quite some time ago, back in 2010, 2012 era. There are escalators, obviously, for inflation, as our Ad Hoc Capital Improvement Committee has mentioned, that does need to be considered over time. Anywhere from 3 to 9% for inflationary items. The original land acquisition as well was a low figure, and it came in to about 2.1 million, as the City Council is aware. So the budget obviously has changed over time, but when you also turn over to the next resolution, there are some items have changed as well. MWRD, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, requires a number of new requirements per state statute and federal requirements. And so things change once you do receive the land for the parcels, and that was part of it. So at this point, right now, this resolution does provide a floor to signal intent, and then also to make sure that we're covering ourselves when we go out to the market. The other piece to that, at this point, in terms of the entire budget, this has been sort of an estimate, as we've been mentioning. And as we met individually one-on-one through our meetings with the mayor and the city council just over this last couple of weeks, these are estimates right now. Obviously, when we go into the next resolution, we can discuss it further, but I wanted to, and I don't know if I further clarified for you, Mr. Cannon.
Well, you have, Ms. Gallagher, but I'm still confused because my numbers add up to 14 million. And we're asking for 13 for the fire station, so that'll only leave 3 for other infrastructure. And I'm not disagreeing with anything you said. It just, the numbers don't add up to what we're saying in some ways, unless I'm misunderstanding something. That's all I'm saying, is it looks like we're going to be $1 million short we're shorting ourselves for $1 million on the fire stations as proposed right now.
At this point, we're saying estimated cost, and the reason for that is the very reason that Hicks property has not been completely designed for construction purposes. What I would tell you right now, when you look at the next resolution, not to go into that too far, but it does relate to this resolution before you, that 5.8 that's sitting there for the 3201 Algonquin property, that does include a contingency. It also includes the construction management fee. The land is a different parcel when you get to the Hicks property, the second fire station. So with that being said, that budget overall will be value engineered not only through the 3201 Algonquin property, but also through Hicks. We've done some allowances and value engineering up to this point, but that will continue throughout the process. When you're mentioning the $14 million, if you just double the 3201 Algonquin budget and you relate it to Hicks, that is not something that should be done because we're not fully there yet. What we're looking for right now is a passage of the resolution so that we're signaling that we are going to issue debt at some point. And then in terms of the first piece, the first parcel, which is Fire Station 16 for 3201 Algonquin, that is the first parcel to move forward. Obviously, the land has been purchased. City Council has given the authority to do that. We've done that, and we're just moving on the directive of the City Council. In terms of the second parcel, which is Hicks, the construction design element in the bid documents are about 45 to about 90 days out behind, because that purchase was done at a later date. So in terms of the overall estimate, right now it's $13 million, but that does include a contingency. I hope that addresses some of your questions.
Thanks for your answers. I appreciate it.
Mr. Cannon is further, okay. Further discussion on Resolution N? Mr. Diastis.
Thank you. I've heard all that we've talked about, and I'm uncomfortable at talking about $13 million. We spent 2.1 already. The money is spent. I would be more comfortable making this 13 million, 9 million, and telling Wegman, there's your budget. You have 9 million, build 2. Do what you have to do. I've seen further on that some of the building may have expanded, and I recall many years ago when we talked about a jump station on Algonquin Road. It went from a 1-bay to a 2-bay to a 3-bay. It had glass something or another. It had underground storage. It got so expanded, and I feel that that's where this is going. So if you say this is signaling intent, I don't mind signaling intent, but I will tell you, 9 million is the tops, excluding the land purchase. So that was your overage. You've gone over it already. I'm good at 9 million, and if the council would like to make an amendment that changes to 9 million, I'm fine with that, but I won't vote for anything over 9 million. Re-engineer your buildings to $9 million.
Thank you, Mr. Diastis. Further discussion on Resolution N. I'm sorry, Mr. Gallo. I apologize.
That's okay. So I just need to make the comments clear on behalf of the 4th Ward, the residents who I speak with and represent. They have had some disdain for the migration of the station moving from Meadow and Kirchhoff over to Algonquin. They furthermore have been discomforted by the fact that the budget has grown in the sense that it has. Not to mention the budget will actually grow even larger over the course of 20 years that we borrowed the money for. And in keeping true with voicing the opinion of the people in my ward, I have to not go for this at this price.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I've been behind this from the start. I would remind the council that if we pull the plug now, you'll be on the hook for several $1 million of sunk costs, and you can think of that as you will. But this has been years in the making, relocating these 2 stations. All along in the process, for those of us who've been through that process, you know, we gave our nods or at least the majority of us did, and we've taken so many studies and so many expert opinions and had our staff, whom I completely trust, walk us through this whole project. I'm not pinning a budget on anything, and I don't want to impose a budget, and then this late in the game. And I've been following this since we started this rolling. And I guess to summarize, I would caution council from trying to take this giant boat of money and steering it in a different direction. It's one of the biggest things, it's the biggest thing those of us who've been on the council for the past 7 years have done. I'm not into legacy building at all, but this city needs new fire stations. We've taken a very structured approach, and I guess speaking for myself, I've had my hand held mostly from our city manager and director of finance. I feel completely informed, and again, I trust them and the people we've hired to help with the construction of this, and I'm certainly not going to deviate from that support now. So I'll be voting yes for this, signaling our intent. And then we'll get more details, as Ms. Gallagher mentions, but this would be a big deal to pull out of now in terms of what we're doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banger. Further discussion, Ms. Majankas, yes.
Thank you. Excuse me. Excuse me, sorry about that. I was against this in the beginning when I first got on council, and this discussion's been going on since I was a wee little girl. But I can't even tell you how long you guys have been discussing it, way before I was on council. And I'm a little surprised that when people say they're surprised how the prices have gone up in the last, since what was 2011 we were talking about, that $9 million was thrown around. That's 7 years ago. Prices are going up. So I'm not surprised about it. We've put a lot of money into it. I was not for this in the beginning, but as Alderman Banter said, there's a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources put into this, a lot of staff time and stuff. So I will be supporting this now, even though I didn't think it was the thing to go in the past. You know, I'm just surprised when people are shocked by the sticker price all of a sudden, when this was told to members of the council when I voted against moving 2 fire stations, that what was $9 million is going to turn into $12-13 million. So I'm a little surprised that people are surprised by the pricing. But again, this is an intent, so I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Ms. Majankas. Further discussion on Resolution N. Yes, Melissa Gallagher. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add one more item as well. One of the things that we've looked at as the internal team, the committee, along with the construction design builder, R.C. Wegman, and we've gone through many site visits to stations, approximately 10, and we've also looked at other communities who've built fire stations. I can give you just a couple little anecdotal items that would be helpful. One of the things that we've looked at other communities in neighboring areas, I can tell you about $12 million for one station. I can tell you $9 million for one station, and I'm not going to mention names. But I will tell you also, traditionally, a budget number is generated as a starting point, which is reasonable. However, it is easy to overlook some of the key financial and other considerations in setting a maximum budget. Truly, before we understand the long-term needs of a fire station. And I think everyone can attest to that our fire stations are going to be here for a long time, 30 to 40 to 50 years, and they should be built that way. Fire Station 16 currently over on Plum Grove Road is 12,000 square feet. The initial budget considerations were about 10,000 square feet. Maybe at the time when that budget number of $9 million was generated, the thought process that you could possibly go to 10,000 square feet. But the reality is the fire equipment these days, you cannot do that. And so 12,000 square feet plus minus, that is what is being currently construction designed now. And so budgeting and cost control has been built from the onset. It's going to continue throughout the entire process. And we are taking a very close look to every tax dollar spent. And that's what the role of the city is doing currently. So I just wanted to add that as clarification.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Do we have further discussion on Resolution N? Mr. Budmats.
I did a little investigation. In this year, 4 communities have opened fire stations. Boardman, Ohio opened an 18,000 square foot fire station for $3.3 million cost. Franklin Park, Pennsylvania opened a 24,000 square foot station for $4.8 million in April of this year. Metairie, Louisiana opened up a 10,468 square foot facility for $3.8 million. Cape Girardeau opened up a 11,800 square foot facility for $3.47 million. I realize that Wegman signed a contract with us in 2016 that says it was going to be $6.947 million, and that they had offered a $200,000 contingency. This is on their letterhead. They're our experts, and 2 years ago they told us it was going to cost this much money. They were given a $9 million mandate, as our finance director said, to build 2 fire stations for $9 million. Now they come back to us and we're looking at, as Alderman Cannon said, $14 million. Their first fire station bid is at $5.8 million, which is just $1 million shy of what they said 2 years ago was going to cost for 2. I'm sorry, but I'm not making double what I was 2 years ago, and I don't think they should either. I have no problems with getting bonding. I have no problems with getting a fire station that's going to be functional. I would like to have 2 fire stations that were functional for the $9 million that they originally proposed. I agree with Alderman Diastis. It doesn't happen often, but I agree with Alderman Diastis. $9 million onto the 2 that they've already spent is $11 million. If they can build 2 stations for $11 million, let's do it. If they can't, then we really have to figure out what needs to be cut so that this happens the right way. But something's wrong. If 4 other communities this year can build fire stations for these kind of money, so can we.
Thank you, Mr. Budmats. Any further discussion on Resolution N? Mr. Diastis.
So my question is, should we change the 13 million, or do we just signal our intent at 13 million? And I think staff has heard that several of us are not quite as comfortable at that $13 million point. Mr. Budmats and I agree we're comfortable at the $11 million point. Do we change it, or do we just signal our intent to move ahead, and when we get to actual spending, we say, here is the budget? I'm comfortable signaling intent to do this because I think we should. The city needs these fire stations. I'm not certain that the cost is palatable. What would the council like to do?
Are you proposing an amendment to this resolution?
This is just signaling intent. What I don't want is it gets voted down. It's just intent. Intent is not reality at this point. It's just saying, yes, we want to move ahead, but I think staff has heard we have concerns at this price point.
Well, this resolution N, you've also asked to pull resolution O, which is
same thing.
Same thing, but it would award a contract. So do you want to move forward with the intent to bond and then make your statement on O of where you want to go? It's
sure.
It's your choice. It's one way or the other. So if we move.
Okay, so then I will make an amendment that on this intent to bond resolution that we adjusted from 13 million to 11 million. Does that sound right, Nick? Mr. Budmats?
And just to, that's what you're doing, that leaves us nothing with infrastructure improvements.
Oh, no.
Well, gentlemen,
change the 13 to 11 and leave the 4.
Gentlemen, one at a time here. So go ahead, Mr.
Okay, so change the 13.
Let's clarify.
Change the 13 to...
Mr. Diastis,
thank you.
Let's clarify. Your proposal is to go from 13 million to 11 million, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And leave the 4 alone.
All right. So your motion is to move the project from 13 million to 11 million.
That's correct.
Do we have a second on Mr. Diastis' motion on resolution N? Mr. Bud Matts has made that motion. Do we have further discussion on the amendment to Resolution N to decrease it from 13 million to 11 million? Ms. Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't mean to interrupt, but I appreciate you letting me be recognized on the floor. I did want to just, again, and I appreciate the amendment there, but I do want to add that we should not tie the hands of the project overall, because of the fact that the other pieces that we have already committed through the audit and also signaled our intent also earlier that we would repay the general fund for $2.1 million. So now we may be tying the hands of the city's budget in the future year, which is 2019 coming up. And so we've already developed the budget with a payable back to, and it's sitting in our audit right now. The auditors did present that in June this year. So if we do tie the hands of the city by this amendment, that would be the case, is that 2.1 million would not go back to the general fund, and you'd be shorting the general fund that money. I'm just kind of adding some clarification. I know it's a complex subject and there are lots of facets to it, so I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Okay. Well, the motion on the floor after discussion is, Mr. Diaz's motion is to amend Resolution N to make it $11 million. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Majikas?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
No.
Alderman Bud Matts?
Yes.
Fails. So this brings us back to the amendment to the Resolution N fails. This brings us back to the original Resolution N number 18-R-79 with the intent to bond. Is there any further discussion on Resolution N? Yes, Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind everybody, we're not voting on anything specifically tonight. Everything that we're going to be talking about that we're going to bond out at, we'll all have an opportunity at a later date to change any number we want. So nothing is in solid written in gold here.
No.
Everything is up for discussion at a further point. I just want to reinforce that. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts?
No.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
6 in favor and 1 opposed. The resolution does pass. This brings us to Resolution O, number 18-R-80, award a contract for 3201 Algonquin Road Fire Station. This resolution, if adopted, would award a contract to build a fire station at 3201 Algonquin Road. Do I have a motion to move resolution forward? Mr. Banger's made it, Mr. Diastis has seconded it. Mr. Diastis, you brought this forward, so you have, as they say, first bite of the apple.
I'll let someone else take the first bite.
Yes, Mr. Gallo?
I would take a conditional approach that if we can get R.C. Wegman to adjust their pricing, then we can have a contract. That would be my motion.
But you need to be something more
So we
specific.
could go back to Alderman Budsmat's price of $9 million that you recommended.
Well, this is just for one fire station.
Mhm.
The resolution was
And
for
they
two fire
could make
stations.
that work with what's possible. We could look at Los Angeles County and see a $40 million fire station, or we could go to some podunk place in Nebraska and see a $2,500 fire station. So I would stick with the price Alderman Bud Matts suggested for 2 fire stations.
So, discussion point, or are you making a motion? And could you just what I'm looking
A
for, Mr.
motion
Gallo,
for
just...
R.C. Wegman to receive a contract if they can agree to a new price, and that price would be the number that Alderman Bud Matts suggested for 2 fire stations.
Which is a total of $11 million.
Yeah, 9
million, because we've already spent 2.2.
2.2.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Comstock, yes, sir.
we're going to tag team on this one, but just remember that the number that you're seeing has already been bidded out. These are the lowest responsible for each of the trades, for each of the items, for everything else that goes on. I would reiterate, too, what we've also heard from R.J. Wagman, that they're hoping to get, it takes about 3 months to get the roof on top, so if you delay it, and that's the council's decision, whatever you want to do, you will not have a roof before the winter unless the weather changes and something else. So again, each of these pieces that you're seeing at the 5.8, pull out the contingency, pull out some of the other value added that we will continue doing. This has already been competitively bid, lowest responsible, and if you're trying to say you want to say no to this, then again, the stakeholder committee that has been working on this and value adding each of the pieces, complying with ADA, complying with stormwater management, complying with all the other pieces. This is not a house that you live in. We will have to go back to each of the pieces, and again, this number that you see in front of you has already been done.
Thank you, Mr. Comstock. Is there further discussion on Mr. Gallo's motion to limit it to 9?
Was there a second?
Dude, I'm sorry.
I'm
just clarifying. I'm sorry. I want to clarify the motion is that $9 million is Mr. Gallo's motion going forward.
For two.
For 2 fire stations. I could build them. Okay. Do we have a second on Mr. Gallo's motion? Mr. Bud Matts has made a second. Is there further discussion on Mr. Gallo's motion?
Yeah, I mean.
May I?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
You can't
just.
Either you vote it up or you vote it down. You can't amend it to say come back with $9 million for 2 fire stations when you've got a contract in front of you. Either you accept it or you reject it. That's all you can do.
I've been rejecting it since day one for the sake of the 4th Ward and the residents, and I believe if Wegman wants to get a project or 2 out of this, they will absolutely discuss what our options are and what we can do to make it right.
I'm just, for tonight, I'm simply saying.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So we need to change, we can't amend the contract at this stage. All right, so advice of legal counsel, we cannot amend the price of the station at this time.
Alderman Cannon would like to speak.
Mr. Cannon, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From what I'm hearing up here, it sounds like most of us are in favor of doing the 2 new fire stations. I don't think there's a big pushback that we don't want to do them. I think the problem we're having is with the numbers, because the numbers we were told 2.5 years ago are a lot different than the numbers today. And I know a lot of them can be justified, but the problem is we don't have an accounting sheet that shows each and every one of these things that has been added that's costing so much more money. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those things that were done, and they might be necessary, they might be legal and all that, but we don't really have an accounting of that. We just have a resolution in front of us. I guess I'd like to have someone come up and stand up and just explain to us one by one the items that have been added and why they were added. Yeah, I'm not saying that they're wrong. We might have to be doing by law, I don't even know, but we don't know what those are, and this doesn't really give us an explanation of that. And again, I want to reiterate, I haven't heard a lot of discussion here about people saying they don't want them. They just don't want them at $14 million. They want them at a lot lower price because we were told not 7 years ago, but 2.5 years ago that we could build 2 stations for $7 million. And now we're talking about building 1 for 5.9. And that's where we need to discuss things. So I don't know if you want, Mr. Mayor, if you want to bring up some of the people to explain some of these issues or how you want to handle it. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm just saying I think we need to have a broader-based discussion before we vote on this thing.
No, let me finish what we're going.
Yeah.
I don't think.
May I assist?
Hold on. I'm sorry.
May I assist with that?
You have your second bite of the apple. Go ahead, Mr. Gallo.
So to date, I would love to see line items like that. Our contract with Wegman is a cost-plus contract, and to date, they invoice us at lump sum, so we don't get to recognize any of those itemized expenses or purchases that we do. So that's one of the fundamental challenges that I have when I go back to the residents, is to say that we fundamentally already break our contract by not even receiving and recognizing invoices as we were contracted to receive them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gallo. So, Mr. Crumstock, would you like to respond to Mr. Cannon, or is that the chief or who do we have here representing Wegman?
So why don't you open, we're having our own, why don't you open the floor, and then we'll have Terry Borg come up and do some of the discussion.
Which one are we, our chief, or are we going to from open
Terry
floor
Borg.
from the?
Terry Borg is from RJ Webb.
We have a motion to open up the floor for our engineer. So, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You got your sheet? What? You got your sheet?
It doesn't matter. It's fucking inflated these prices of robbers. It's a joke. Give more time to make them up. Yeah, it's a joke. I mean, it's a joke.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hi there, young man. You
Yes.
said earlier this evening you wanted a chance to speak. Well, congratulations. So, is there a group that's with you, or are you basically?
I'm representing R.C. Wegman tonight.
Okay.
So, as I have throughout the entire project.
Okay. So, Mr. Cannon, what is the specific?
Well, I guess I would just like a broad overview of we've talked, there's a lot of numbers being thrown around by all of us. So, to my knowledge, you sent a document into us 2.5 years ago saying you thought you could build 2 stations for $7 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a correct statement, or am I misstating
Yes,
that?
at the time, back in March of 2016, the cost of a fire station was going at a moderately designed fire station was going at a cost of about $350 a square foot.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that.
And we've got data that can support that.
I'm fine with it. I have no problem with anything like that. So here's what I'd like you to do is bring us back to 2.5 years ago when that number was floated by us to today. And if you could spell out specifically the things like the MWRD, the number we're actually dealing with now, and if you don't have the exact numbers, if you could just give us ballpark numbers, because I don't really understand exactly how many of those issues that are out there that have added so much cost to the project. They might all be justified, but I'm not speaking for anybody but myself. I don't know what those numbers are and what the items are.
I can summarize some of them. I mean, there's many factors that have gone into the reason why it costs more now. I would say the overall factors, when we were hired, we were told that we should design to the needs of the fire station. And so that's what we tried to do. So throughout the whole design process, we went back and forth on the square footage, and ultimately the building, again, to accommodate the amount of manpower that's expected to be in these fire stations and the size of the apparatus, what they want to put in the fire station, the buildings grew to about 12,750 square feet. So that's an increase of 5,700 square feet or something like that for 2 buildings, for each building. So,
So could you, I guess, just from my standpoint, can you give me a number on how much more that would be then? Is it just strictly a math thing? 350 times 5,700?
Yeah, I don't have a calculator.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I understand.
But again, to further clarify, approximately in early March of 2017, a year later, we built a fire station in Aurora, and in just that year's time, the cost of that fire station escalated to almost $390 a square foot, just from increased labor costs, increased material costs. There's some of the large factors here was, again, designing to need. We had to follow the MWRD requirements. for underground stormwater storage that added approximately $240,000 to the
Is that for
cost.
each station or each one station?
Each station.
So 480 grand then altogether. I was told we also changed the heating systems in there.
HVAC system, again, we've done fire stations that have had more simplified HVAC systems with residential furnaces and condensing units. This one has a more sophisticated heating system using boilers, air handlers. It has a what they call a BAS, a building automated system, so that the control of the fire station can be done remotely. Again, that was something that was asked of us to design by the city. It's, I guess, a standard that the city is trying to follow on all of their city buildings from now on. So we, again, that added, I would say, at least $300,000 to the cost of the fire station.
For both or just one?
Just one.
So if we're looking at two, that's 600 grand just for that system?
Correct.
Okay.
Again, that's something that we were asked to provide. That was the design that we were asked to do. We've designed the station with a standing seam roof versus a shingle roof. But again, we're looking at that as long-term. That standing seam roof will probably outlast the life of the fire station. Whereas a shingle roof, you may have to replace the shingles in 20 to 25 years. So again, we feel that that's a big upfront cost, but in the overall longevity of the station, it's a better operational decision for the city.
Can you attribute, can you give me a number on that at all? A ballpark even?
It's probably $80,000 more expensive for the roof.
Each one?
Mm-hmm.
So 160 grand.
Mr. Cannon, I'm going to step in here because there seems to be a lot of questions about costs, and we've just asked him to come up here tonight, and I'm getting the sense from the council that many people may have, like you said, want to go through with the fire stations, but they have questions on costs. And I'm going to suggest to the council that maybe we postpone this to the next meeting and then have individual meetings that councilmen can sit down with staff and with Wegman and the chief, because we've asked him to step up here, and from what the conversation we're having here is that there's a lot more, many things have changed since it first started. So
I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
So that is, you have the floor right now. That's I'm going to ask.
So are you suggesting I make a motion to do that?
To postpone it, and then can staff do that for the next 2 weeks?
Staff can do anything if you're available.
Okay.
I'll make that proposal then. I mean, yes, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to, all I'm looking for just is information, that's all.
I understand, but
okay,
I also...
so I'll make the motion to postpone until the next meeting then.
Okay, do we have a second to that?
Second.
Mr. Diastis to second that. Is there any further discussion to postpone with the understanding that staff will be meeting with Wegman and the chief, and that any and all questions that the aldermen have can be addressed by the staff at that time?
And I'm fine with everything you just said, Mr. Mayor. I guess in conjunction with that, if we could just get, I won't speak for anybody but myself, if I could just get a list of the things that have been added. I'm not saying we don't deserve to have them, but what are they and how much do they cost?
Okay, so that's part of
That's what I'd like to see.
I just wanted to clarify one other thing. There was comment about we were not hired on a cost plus. We were hired on a lump sum fee that we gave the city 2.5 years ago, and we have maintained that fee.
I have that contract that shows cost plus.
Okay, Mr.
Our fee has not changed in 2.5 years. Even though the cost of the station has gone up, our fee has remained the same.
Your fee may have remained the same.
Point of order, Mr. Gallo. Mr. Gallo, you've spoken twice. We've asked him to come forward, and he's spoken. So right now, we have a motion on the floor to postpone that has been seconded. I realize you're up here, Chief, and you're ready the bit. And so a motion for what Mr. Cannon has brought forth that we will be having till the next meeting, and that we will be having individual meetings with the chief and Wakeman during that period, correct?
And if you could just publish to us what the cost factors are that have increased.
And it has been seconded. Well, any further discussion on the postponement? Mr.
May I make a comment?
Banger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This brings us into the, I know we're talking big money here, so to use the term micromanagement might be a misnomer. They've had stakeholder meetings on this 10 times. It's a group of individuals that we've known about who have been shepherding this through the process. I find a motion to postpone so that we can bust open all the details, similar to taking the streets program and having each of the aldermen go through all the different road sections that are going to be repaved and putting in their 2 cents worth. And I know I probably have some colleagues who want us to do that anyway, but that's something once again, I trust that staff's doing their job, which I consider this their job. And I think, once again, this late in the game, I think this just emanates bad vibes for us to all of a sudden start questioning each and every detail that has been, I'm knowing the folks who are involved here, exhaustively gone over. There's something to be said for just me having a full-time job and a family, etc. I very much appreciate our staff and the people we have in place to do this on our behalf, so that when they take us through the big picture, I can trust what they're saying, which is the situation here. I'm certainly not going to support a motion to postpone, and I think this is a simple yes or no vote, and we should have that vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banger. Further discussion on the motion to postpone? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Banger?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
5 in favor and 2 opposed. The motion to postpone is passed. It will be brought forth at the next meeting with the understanding that staff will be scheduling meetings with individual aldermen. Yes.
Actually, it's council that should be scheduling it with Terry.
Well, council members that will need to be discussed, plus Mr. Cannon's request for a detailed list.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Do we have a motion to close the floor?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
A second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That brings us to Resolution S. Number 18-R-84, approve the municipal gas tax agreement. This resolution, if adopted, would approve an agreement with the NICOR and the City of Rolling Meadows regarding the municipal gas tax implementations are scheduled for December 1st, 2018. Is there a motion to move resolution number 18-R-84 forward?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Majakis has made that motion and has been seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Diastis?
No.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banger?
Yes.
With 6 approved and 1 against, that resolution moves forward. That brings us to resolution number 18-R-85, the approve the trick-or-treat hours. This resolution, if adopted, would approve the 2018 trick-or-treat hours in the City of Rolling Meadows. Do we have a motion to move resolution T forward? Mr. Banger has made that motion. Mr. Williams has seconded. Mr. Banger, is there discussion on this?
Yes. As always, I think 3 o'clock is way too early for trick-or-treating hours, and I think this should be changed to 5 o'clock, which is more aligned with the time people come home. and can actually be on the porch to hand out candy. So I would make a motion to change this 3 o'clock start time to 5 o'clock.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second to Mr. Banger's motion? Mr. Banger, I'm sorry, but once again, for lack of a second, you're right.
He doesn't give his kids Christmas presents either.
For the second time in a row, so.
I give you credit for keep trying every
That's
year.
it. Is there any further discussion on Resolution T? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Williams.
Yes.
Alderman Cannon.
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts.
Yes.
Alderman Majakis.
Definitely.
Alderman Gallo.
Yes.
Alderman Banjer.
Yes.
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
That Resolution T does pass.
Yay.
The mayor has no appointments. The mayor has no proclamations. This brings us to city staff reports. Community items of interest. Mr. Krumstock.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I know it's long. I'll try keeping this relatively short. Obviously, as everybody knows, school is open, so please drive carefully. We want to thank everybody who was at the 4th annual Wind Down. I know certain people don't always like plastic, but that was our cups that we used this time. We do appreciate everybody who came. It wasn't raining this hard like outside right now, but it did rain near the end. But we do appreciate everybody coming. We especially do appreciate the vendors, Ben Franklin, who donated, obviously, and then the stadium and the Reps Place. Stadium, obviously, with beer and wine, and Reps Place with beer and wine, too. We do want to thank all the volunteers for that Friday, August 17th event. It really was a great success. We did have more people, and obviously the band was pretty good until the rain came. We do want to say that City Hall and Public Works will be closed on Monday, September 3rd, in observance of the Labor Day holiday. There will be no refuse collection on Monday. Refuse collection will be delayed 1 day that entire week. We wish everybody a safe and happy Labor Day weekend. The last Friday Rock and Roll in Meadows for 2018 is scheduled for Friday, September 7th at Kimball Hill Park. The featured band is Centerfold, and they're scheduled to play from 7 to 10 p.m., so hopefully we won't be having any rain. The 11th annual Duck Race will be held on Friday, September 7th. That happens at 7, and obviously the Friday Rocks is from 7 to 10. It is sponsored by the city's Environmental Committee, Rotary Club of Rolling Meadows, and the Rolling Meadows Park District Foundation. It is scheduled to be held, as I said, at the waterfall this year, so watch the ducks fly through the waterfall instead of all the blowers that we used to use to move them down the creek. And for the last time for this season, I can say that for $5 per duck, you can purchase, or you can get a quack pack for 5 ducks at $20. And they are sold here at City Hall, and they are sold there at the night of the event. And then if you missed the Saturday, August 25th City Market that the mayor mentioned earlier that the high school, Rolling Meadows High School Band was playing, our last regularly scheduled market for 2018 is set for Saturday, September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the parking lot at Community Church at 2720 Kirchhoff Road. Then, obviously, from the schedule, this Friday is the last scheduled Meadows Cruise Nights, and we do thank Meadows Christian Fellowship located at 2401 Kirchhoff Road for doing that. The Cruise Nights actually has a family fest for this last event that they're actually setting up. We do have flyers here. I'm trying to get the camera. But we do have flyers for this last event that they're actually going to have. They're going to have some face painting, a magician, Scar, who is the Rolling Meadows Canine. He will be doing a presentation, and if you didn't know, and if you haven't been to the Rolling Meadows Facebook, he actually finished 3rd in the Canine Olympics. We lost to Hawaii and Brazil. But it was his first time at this event. Obviously, we're appreciative of that. There will be some stilt walkers, and there will be some balloon twisting is what they call, but it's usually making animals. And again, that's from 5 to 8 p.m. here in the downtown for that. Obviously, what we do want to reiterate to people is that if you do have a crime tip for the Rolling Meadows Police Department, please contact the Rolling Meadows Crime Stoppers at 1-847-590-7867. That's 1-847-590-STOP. And actually, right in front of me is the president of the Crime Stoppers, Dave Whitney. So if you have a tip and you would like to tell him, you can also tell him as he sits in front of me. And then have you seen the August electronic news and views? The e-news and views is the complement to the regular printed production. You do have to go to the city website at www.cityrm.org and click to news and views, and you will see that. And then obviously, because it's the last meeting of the month, we do want to mention the September committee meetings. The Economic Development Committee will be meeting on Tuesday, September 4th at 6 p.m. That's right after Labor Day, so come on, you have no excuse not to show up. Our tentative items are scheduled for that meeting consists of 1, the business list feedback and distribution. Meet Chicago Northwest will be doing a presentation to the EDC. The business advocate, Martha Corner, will be doing her usual update. We will also be doing an update about video gaming in the city. We will also start a discussion with outdoor seating, especially as you heard from tonight, we did have some discussion with that. But the idea is for Economic Development Committee to actually have part of that discussion and then bring it to a future committee of the whole with some new parameters and some other items. And then there's a business update and then other items of interest, and then the Chamber of Commerce will be doing a presentation. Also that night, and again, the Planning Zoning Commission will be meeting, and again, that's Tuesday, September 4th. They start at 7:30, and tentatively that night's meeting really is going to be dealing with the comprehensive plan. The ad hoc committee will be meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that really is kicking off a lot of the work that will actually be starting on that. And also, if during those meetings, if you would like to make additional comments about the comprehensive plan, we do have a website link on our current site that you can get some feedback. And then at the September 7th, as you watch the ducks go down and you can listen to music for the Friday Rocks, you can also talk to Tesca, where they're going to be doing a survey at that point in time. So again, that is items of interest. We do appreciate all that the cruisers do. And again, flyer. This is how they're doing a family fest to finish the 2018 cruise nights.
Thank you. That brings us back to Mr. Crumstock.
Obviously, there are 3 items, 3 new businesses that opened up in 2018. In July, the most notable that I have to mention is that Northwest Community Hospital opened up another location in Rolling Meadows, and it's 1941 Rowling Road. And again, that's just a doctor's group that's actually in there, and hopefully at some point they're going to be doing a ribbon cutting, but they've been working on that for about 6 months. And with that, that's items of interest.
Thank you. That brings us to other matters not on the agenda. The only thing that I would remind everyone is that...
Hold on.
Sorry. Yes. Yep, Mr. Budmats?
Matters not on the agenda?
I'm there. And you will be next. Anticipation is just remind everyone that staff will be getting the information that Mr. Cannon requested, and that council needs to make appointments with Barry through you or through Terry?
I prefer that they go through the fire chief,
station,
because
okay.
then this way he's there and making sure that Terry Bohr is there.
Okay, thank you. Now, other matters not on the agenda. Mr. Budmats.
Through the diligent efforts of the mayor and Dave Whitney, we have been able to secure the Congress, members of Congress, Peter Roscom and Raja, I don't want to mess his last name up.
Krishnamurthy. Krishnamurthy.
As well as Tammy Duckworth, the senator, and Dick Durbin from Illinois, to sign a letter to the Postmaster General of the United States requesting that the Rolling Meadows Post Office be reopened. More than 1,000 residents have signed a petition, and that was very largely due to Dave Whitney's efforts. And so we want to thank him for that. But at this point, I would like to ask the council to sign a letter to Megan Brennan, the Postmaster General of the United States, asking her to reopen a post office in our city. We have, along with the letter from our Congress representatives, we would also have 1,000 petitions to send the Postmaster General. So I would ask that the council be willing to sign this. I don't know if I need a motion for that or not, so you can let me know. If that's
Not on the agenda, just pass it.
Pass
Just pass it around.
Go for it.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Banger.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr. McCall. This meeting was potentially the most confusing I've ever had in my 7 years. So thank you to Mr. McCall for shepherding us through. It was also a long haul tonight, so thanks to, I guess, the 8 or 9 or 10 folks still in there. And we had a big show from a lot of other residents, so most of whom stuck it out for a couple hours. So thank you to all those folks. It's always nice. I'm encouraged when I see people come to meetings and actually stick around and watch as Murica happens. So thank you all.
Even when they turn you down for Halloween?
That's right.
Well, Alderman, it was actually the mayor who shepherded us through all that. Wasn't me tonight.
All righty. Well, thank you both.
Hey, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon.
I have a couple of things also I'd like to just
Not on
mention
the
real
agenda,
quick.
go ahead.
No, I'll be real quick. I got a couple of phone calls last week that I just wanted to share with the council. I had 2 residents call specifically, one earlier in summer and one just this last week, about vendors coming to their door. And I would just ask if maybe the next News and Views, if we could just review, I think all of us have been confronted with this at one time or another, but there still is a lot of confusion from our residents because many of the vendors that come to the door pretend like they've been licensed by the city, and we all know they have not been. And I would just ask you to reiterate what that is. I think that the policy is they have to come down to the city and get a permit with the City of Rolling Meadows name on it. I think they get fingerprinted, but I don't know about that. And I guess the bigger thing is also the one person was concerned because the vendor came to their door at 8:45 at night. And I thought that was later than our normal hours. But again, I would just ask you to, if you could just reiterate it and put it in writing so people are more aware of it, because a lot of these vendors come and they have a lanyard on from their company. They look like, and they say, oh yeah, we got a permit, but it's back in our office, is one of the common lines, as we all know. So again, if we could just reiterate. And then I also had another call that was I had no idea how to answer this. One of the residents called and said, I watch the meeting sometimes and I see on the write-ups that you guys have your own court system and you make fines against people. And that person was just wondering, is that just a slap on the wrist, or do we actually ever collect the money? And how do we collect it? I didn't know how to answer because I don't know how we do that.
So let me answer both things. Obviously, solicitors do need to come in, and they are licensed by the municipality, and as Chief Nowacki knows, we do pull permits, especially if we find people violating or any of those things. So if any resident does have a concern, please call PD immediately, because they do show up and they do get the complaints. The other thing is, obviously, community development does the first part of the process, and then PD. And we do run that every so often, so we'll schedule it to run again in the next News and Views if we can. The other part that you were asking about, that one...
And if you don't want to answer right now, you can put it in writing some other time.
Or you could bring it out as a staff letter.
I just don't know what the answers are.
Yeah.
I forgot, what was number 2 again?
Well, just about, we fine people, but do we actually ever collect the money?
So again, adjudication, we do fine and we do collect.
How do you collect, though? What if they don't?
Check, credit.
But can they walk out without paying?
Well, some people might walk out without it, and then they receive a letter in the mail. If they don't pay by the mail, then we give them a follow-up, due diligence. And then A, we can bring them to collections. B, we can go to I-State, which also means that now the state knows that we're looking for money. So if there's ever a refund that they're attributed to, the city is going to get money first before they actually get their refund. So we do have a process that we do collect, and actually when you look in the budget itself, it actually has adjudication, what is actually coming into that point. But we do collect, and again, each adjudication, after you're done, it all goes on to finance. They put it into the adjudication, and then the follow-up is done by finance. And then after we find a long enough period of time that you have not, we actually start doing that with the collection process. We also have the other means. So hypothetically, let's say that we have brought a developer, builder, contractor to adjudication. If they have not paid that fine, when they come in again for a building permit, If that's still sitting out there, they will not be receiving their permit until they actually pay their full attributed amount.
Great, thanks for the explanation.
I think that was everything. Sorry it's late.
I just know what the answer was. That's great. I learned something.
Any other matters not on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, she just said she wanted to say.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Jenkins.
just real quick, and I know it was said once, but I just want to reiterate from my ward to Dave Whitney, thank you so much for spearheading for the post office back, because you do so much for the city between community events, Crime Stoppers, planning and zoning, everything. So to pound the pavement like you've been doing and put out that effort, it's really appreciated by my ward, and I know the other wards also. So just want you to know that that's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Kudos to that. And also, Mr. Whitney is looking to see if we can get a photo op here with our congressman up here. So it's a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and so far he's done well. Any other matters not on the agenda? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of here.